A secret vault, ancient manuscripts, 9 knights who found something beneath Solomon's temple that would change history forever. In 1119, these Templars discovered texts containing impossible knowledge, flying machines, anatomical studies, engineering blueprints centuries ahead of their time. But here's what history won't tell you. Those same diagrams resurface 300 years later in one man's notebooks. Leonardo da Vinci, genius, or keeper of secrets passed through bloodlines and brotherhood bonds, his impossible inventions, perfect anatomical drawings, mysterious paintings. You're not seeing one man's brilliance. You're seeing humanity's most carefully guarded knowledge, transmitted through fire and persecution across centuries. Cold wind cuts across Jerusalem's ancient stones as 9 knights gather in shadow, their breath misting in the dawn air like incense from forgotten altars. Each man has travelled far to reach this sacred mount. Hugh de Paynes from Champagne's rolling hills, Godfrey de Saint-Omer from Flanders' muddy fields, 7 others whose names history will remember, for reasons they cannot yet imagine. Behind them stretches the long road from Christian Europe. Ahead looms the Temple Mount, where Solomon once raised walls that defied human comprehension. They have not come to guard pilgrims or protect merchants, though such will be their proclaimed mission. Deep beneath these weathered stones lies something that will not surface again for 3 centuries. Wisdom that built the ancient world and will guide the hand of a Renaissance master yet unborn. King Baldwin II of Jerusalem receives them in his palace hall, morning sunlight streaming through windows that frame the golden dome of the rock beyond. The monarch's face bears the weariness of a man who has held this fractured kingdom together through will and cunning, fighting Muslims by day while managing fractious Christian barons by night. Yet something in these 9 petitioners speaks to purposes deeper than their stated mission. Your Majesties seek to protect pilgrims, Baldwin observes, studying faces that reveal more than their words suggest. Noble work, yet I wonder why men of such evident capability choose duties that common sergeants could fulfill. His eyes linger on Hugh de Paynes, whose bearing suggests command experience far exceeding that of a simple knight seeking religious service. Hugh steps forward, his reply carefully measured. Sire, we have sworn oaths that bind us to service transcending ordinary military duty. The roads from Jaffa may appear our concern, but our true calling lies in safeguarding treasures more precious than the gold that pilgrims carry. The words hang in the air like smoke from sacrifice, their surface meaning clear, while deeper significance remains veiled. Baldwin grants them quarters in his own palace, chambers carved from living rock within the Temple Mount itself. These rooms echo with memories of vanished glory, their walls incorporating stones that once supported Solomon's magnificent structure. Here, where kings of Israel once walked and priests performed sacred duties, the 9 knights begin their true work. Local stonemasons, hired for seemingly innocent repairs, notice peculiarities in their employers' requests. These knights possess architectural drawings showing details that no Christian should recognize, measurements that correspond to structures destroyed centuries before their birth. They direct excavations with precision that suggests intimate familiarity with underground layouts. Their instructions revealing existence of passages that official histories insist never existed. Brother André de Montbard supervises work crews that dig with purpose rather than exploration. Careful around the Eastern Foundation, he instructs workers who barely comprehend his Norman French. The stones there bear weight that has stood since David's time. Disturb nothing unnecessarily. His guidance demonstrates understanding of structural engineering, that exceeds conventional military training, suggesting access to sources beyond immediate experience. The first discoveries emerge within weeks of their arrival. Behind walls barely 3 feet thick, they uncover chambers sealed since Titus's legions sacked the city. Bronze containers rest in alcoves carved from bedrock, their surfaces bearing inscriptions in Greek, Latin, and scripts that predate both languages. The seals that protected these treasures show craftsmanship that suggests importance far exceeding mere administrative documents. Jeffrey Beisel opens the first container with trembling hands, revealing scrolls whose parchment has survived centuries of concealment through preparation methods unknown to contemporary scribes. The text, written in Greek uncials that speak of classical antiquity, describes mechanical devices that move without human hands, gear systems that multiply force through calculated ratios, hydraulic pumps that lift water to impossible heights, calculating machines that perform arithmetic through bronze logic. "Brothers," he whispers, his voice tight with excitement. "These diagrams show engines that could reshape the world, watermills that operate without rivers, siege devices that require no human labor, machines that compute faster than trained clerks." His companions gather around the precious manuscripts, studying illustrations that demonstrate engineering sophistication centuries ahead of their time. The second chamber yields anatomical studies that map the human body with surgical precision. Greek physicians had documented circulatory pathways with accuracy that contemporary medicine cannot match, traced neural networks that explain sensation and movement, investigated connections between physical health and mental acuity through methodical observation. These texts guide surgical procedures, herbal remedies, and most remarkably, insights into how the eye captures light and transforms it into conscious perception. Payan de Mondide examines drawings that show machines designed for powered flight, their wing shapes calculated according to observations of hawk and eagle anatomy. "Look here," he breathes, pointing to calculations that relate surface area to lifting force. These ratios could enable human flight through mechanical assistance. The ancients understood forces that we barely recognize exist. Roman engineering manuals fill additional containers, their technical specifications describing construction methods that enabled aqueducts, bridges, and fortifications whose remains still dominate Mediterranean landscapes. Military applications receive particular attention. Siege engines whose mathematical precision ensures devastating effectiveness. Fortification designs that channel attacking forces into predetermined killing zones. Communication systems that transmit messages across distances through optical signals and coordinated movements. But the greatest treasures lie deepest, in chambers that require removing stones so precisely fitted that no mortar binds their joints. Here rest texts that reveal the mathematical constants governing harmonious construction, proportional relationships that appear in nature from nautilus shells to human anatomy, from cathedral spires to planetary orbits. These insights will guide a Renaissance master when he draws perfect human form within circle and square, when he designs war machines with divine geometry, when he paints faces with ratios that speak to souls rather than merely pleasing eyes. Hugh de Paynes studies optical treatises that explain how curved mirrors focus light into concentrated beams, how lenses bend illumination to magnify distant objects, how the eye itself functions as biological instrument for processing visual information. These principles will influence an Italian artist's comprehension of how faces reveal emotion through subtle muscular changes, how bodies express movement through calculated positioning, how light creates dimensional illusion on flat surfaces. Ancient astronomers had mapped celestial movements with precision that enables accurate prediction of eclipses, planetary positions, and seasonal changes decades in advance. Their instruments, described in detailed technical drawings, demonstrate mechanical sophistication that suggests access to metallurgy, optics, and mathematical calculation far exceeding medieval capabilities. Navigation techniques derived from stellar observations could guide ships across trackless oceans with accuracy approaching modern standards. The preservation methods these discoveries reveal prove as valuable as their content. Ancient scribes had developed systems for encoding dangerous information within apparently innocuous texts, for hiding technical specifications within decorative patterns, for transmitting complex instructions through symbolic languages that appear merely ornamental to casual observation. These techniques will mark the work of a future master whose paintings conceal geometric secrets, whose architectural plans embed multiple meanings, whose very signature becomes puzzle for those capable of reading symbolic communication. Musical theory receives systematic treatment in manuscripts that relate harmonic intervals to architectural proportions, demonstrating how the same ratios that create pleasing sounds govern visual beauty in constructed forms. These relationships will influence artistic composition, where figures arrange according to proportional systems that create optical stability while encoding deeper meanings for viewers possessing interpretive keys. Agricultural innovations described in recovered texts could revolutionize food production through irrigation systems that channel water uphill, soil treatments that enhance fertility without depleting natural resources, and crop rotation methods that maintain productivity across multiple seasons. Mechanical devices automate tasks from grain grinding to cloth weaving, their designs suggesting industrial capabilities that could transform entire economies. Metallurgy receives detailed attention in treatises that describe alloy compositions, achieving strength and durability beyond contemporary capability. Techniques for steel production, bronze casting, and precious metal purification suggest systematic experimentation spanning generations, their results enabling construction of tools and weapons whose quality surpasses anything medieval smiths produce. The Nine Knights realize they possess more than historical artifacts. They hold keys to technologies that could reshape civilization. Yet such power demands terrible responsibility. In hostile hands, these innovations could build weapons of unprecedented destruction, create machines that replace human labor entirely, concentrate power in ways that threaten Christianity's foundations and social order that has maintained European stability. Rituals emerge for protecting their discoveries. New initiates swear oaths beyond traditional knightly vows, binding themselves to guard wisdom for future generations, while ensuring it reaches only those prepared for responsible use. Symbols develop, red crosses with 8 points representing mathematical harmonies that govern natural law, sealed riders suggesting dual nature of all profound insight that will mark their spiritual descendants across centuries. Networks spanning Europe begin carrying connections that will outlive the Order's destruction. Noble families receive treasures surpassing gold, manuscripts containing architectural secrets, mechanical diagrams, anatomical insights. The de Bouillon lineage acquires treatises on fortification design that revolutionize their castle's defenses. Sinclair bloodlines receive geometric principles that will guide construction of monuments whose symbolic content puzzles visitors for centuries. At Crac des Chevaliers, they implement innovations that astound military engineers throughout Christendom. Walls rise using proportional systems that distribute weight with mathematical precision, their angles calculated to deflect siege engines while maximizing defensive fields of fire. Water systems create fountains in desert locations through underground machinery, operating according to hydraulic principles that contemporary engineering considers impossible. Financial innovations revolutionize international commerce through mathematical techniques that optimize currency exchange, track complex transactions across multiple markets, and calculate compound interest with unprecedented accuracy. Letters of credit function through codes based on geometric progressions, their security systems enabling merchants to conduct business across continents without transporting actual treasure through bandit-infested territories. Fortress scriptoriums across their expanding domain copy and enhance recovered texts, adding observations and innovations discovered through practical application. These manuscripts travel hidden pathways, from Jerusalem to Cyprus, Rhodes to southern France, commanderies to allied nobles who comprehend their true value. Each copy ensures total loss becomes impossible, guarantees survival through whatever disasters political upheaval might bring. Architectural symbols encode proportional relationships that govern harmonious construction throughout their building projects. Rose windows incorporate mathematical formulae within decorative patterns, their geometric designs creating acoustic effects that amplify whispered prayers throughout vast cathedral interiors. Column spacings follow ratios that achieve both structural stability and visual beauty, their measurements derived from constants that appear throughout natural and artistic creation. Application becomes essential. Wisdom without practical use dies like seed on rocky ground. Workshops train craftsmen in recovered techniques to create mechanical marvels that demonstrate inherent possibilities. Gear-driven clocks mark time with unprecedented precision through mechanisms that anticipate later innovations by centuries. Bronze calculators perform arithmetic operations through physical manipulation of numerical relationships, their designs suggesting comprehension of abstract mathematics made manifest in material form. Optical devices focus light for surveillance across distances that should limit visual observation, their lens systems enabling military intelligence gathering that provides strategic advantages over conventional reconnaissance methods. Communication networks employ mirror signals and coordinated movements to transmit information faster than mounted messengers, their effectiveness depending upon mathematical calculations of sight lines and reflection angles. Master craftsmen throughout their territories benefit from access to techniques that exceed apparent origins. Metalworkers achieve alloy compositions through processes that suggest systematic understanding of material properties developed through extensive experimentation. Stonemasons carve architectural elements with precision, requiring mathematical instruments of unprecedented accuracy, their proportional systems creating visual harmony that speaks to something deeper than mere aesthetic preference. Leonardo's notebooks, 3 centuries hence, will contain these same flowing diagrams, identical fusion of artistic observation with technical precision, mechanical marvels that mirror these ancient texts. The boy born in Tuscan hills will possess intuitive grasp of principles that require lifetimes of study to master, his genius seeming impossible unless one comprehends what streams of learning have converged to guide his extraordinary achievements. By 1150, as their influence spreads across Christendom, the 9 knights have evolved into something unprecedented. Guardians of humanity's accumulated intellectual heritage, warrior scholars who recognize that true immortality lies not in personal fame, but in wisdom preserved across generations. They have tasted from wells that spring from sources deeper than immediate experience, have drunk knowledge that transforms their mission from simple military service into sacred duty transcending political boundaries. In Jerusalem's deepest chambers, Hugh de Payne's seals selected manuscripts in bronze containers, designed according to ancient specifications for surviving centuries of burial. Political forces will eventually threaten their order's existence, he knows with prophetic certainty. But the wisdom will endure, hidden in noble libraries, encoded in architectural monuments, preserved by families sworn to guard humanity's intellectual heritage until minds capable of full comprehension arise again. The greatest treasure they protect awaits a future genius whose notebooks will contain these same mathematical constants, identical approaches to systematic investigation, mechanical innovations that echo diagrams found beneath Solomon's foundations. 3 centuries hence, in small Tuscan towns where olive groves catch morning sunlight, children will be born whose curiosity equals theirs, whose minds can bridge gaps between ancient wisdom and Renaissance innovation through synthesis that seems miraculous unless one traces its sources. Ancient secrets preserved beneath temple stones will find voice in mirror writing that conceals while revealing, in paintings that encode geometric relationships, in architectural plans that embed multiple layers of meaning. What they preserve in darkness will emerge in brilliant illumination when civilization grows ready, transmitted through bloodlines and brotherhood bonds that connect Jerusalem's ancient foundations to Florence's marble palaces through chains stronger than empires, more enduring than kingdoms. Seeds of legend take root here, in chambers where 9 knights discovered that true greatness lies not in conquest or accumulation, but in serving as bridges between past wisdom and future illumination. They become first guardians of secrets that will reshape human comprehension when they find ultimate expression in minds capable of revolutionary synthesis, achievements that will seem impossible unless one knows what ancient wisdom guided their extraordinary hands. Smoke rises from 1,000 hearth fires across Paris as the city stirs to life on Friday, October 13th, 1307, unaware that this day will echo through centuries as a byword for betrayal. In the royal palace, King Philip IV studies documents that could destroy his kingdom, ledgers showing debts that span years, obligations that bind the crown of France to an order whose power rivals his own. Across the city, white-mantled knights go about their morning prayers, never suspecting that Guillaume de Nogaret sits in shadow chambers, spreading sealed warrants across oak tables like a spider, weaving history's most elaborate trap. Philip's treasurer, Enguerrand de Marigny, places the final tally before his sovereign with hands that tremble, despite their familiarity with royal finances. Majesty, the sum exceeds our worst fears. 1.5 million livres, enough silver to purchase entire duchies, sufficient gold to fund armies for decades. Every transaction bears the temple's seal. Every loan carries their conditions. The numbers represent more than mere debt. They constitute chains that bind the most Christian king to warrior monks whose allegiance flows to papal rather than royal authority. But financial desperation alone could not drive a monarch to risk excommunication through attacking Christendom's most powerful military order. Intelligence gathered through months of careful infiltration reveals dangers that transcend monetary considerations. Royal spies planted as servants, grooms, and scribes within commanderies report ceremonies that mock Christian sacraments, rituals where ancient symbols overshadow crucifixes, chambers where manuscripts written in pagan scripts receive reverence exceeding that shown to Holy Scripture. Guillaume de Nogaret unfolds reports that chill even his hardened sensibilities. Your Majesty, they possess texts that claim to predate Moses himself, diagrams of machines that work without divine blessing, anatomical studies that dissect God's creation with precision that borders on blasphemy. Worse still, initiates speak of wisdom, traditions that treat our Savior as merely one teacher among many, reducing Christian revelation to human philosophy, refined through systematic investigation. These revelations strike at foundations deeper than royal authority or ecclesiastical doctrine. If the allegations prove true, the Templars guard intellectual treasures that could undermine feudal hierarchies built upon divine sanction and clerical mediation. Their initiates study texts that encourage direct investigation of natural law, promoting dangerous notions that human reason can achieve insights traditionally reserved for divine revelation, channeled through proper church authorities. Secret planning accelerates through September's shortening nights. Royal agents map every major commandery from Normandy's coast to Languedoc's mountains, cataloguing escape routes, treasure rooms, and defensive capabilities with military precision. Yet something warns the Order's leadership, some instinct honed by 2 centuries of protecting dangerous secrets against hostile authorities, who understand neither their value nor their implications. Jacques de Molay, Grand Master of the Temple, convenes emergency councils that exclude even trusted subordinates. In chambers carved from living rock beneath their Paris fortress, he consults with men whose names appear in no official records, whose faces remain hidden behind hoods that echo older traditions. These advisors represent networks spanning continents, preservation systems that have safeguarded wisdom through previous catastrophes. The manuscripts must be scattered before the storm breaks, de Molay declares, his voice carrying authority earned through decades of command in hostile territories. Better that fragments survive in exile than that complete collections perish in royal dungeons. His words initiate procedures developed over generations for protecting intellectual treasures against political persecution. On October 12th, as sunset paints La Rochelle's harbour, purple with approaching darkness, 18 ships slip their moorings under cover of coordinated distraction. Port officials, their loyalty purchased through careful negotiation, ensure that harbour records show routine departures for established trading destinations. Yet witnesses speak of unusual cargo, bronze containers that require multiple men to lift, sealed tubes containing scrolls whose parchment gleams white in torchlight, hooded figures whose movements suggest familiarity with systematic concealment procedures. The vessels vanish into Atlantic darkness, carrying humanity's accumulated intellectual heritage toward destinations known only to the initiated. Greek mathematical treatises that map proportional relationships governing natural harmony, Roman engineering manuals that describe mechanical forces with scientific precision, anatomical studies that reveal human physiology through systematic dissection, all travel toward lands where political climate permits continued investigation rather than demanding suppression. Master mariners chosen for discretion rather than commercial experience navigate, using charts whose accuracy suggests impossible geographical precision. Portuguese coastlines appear marked with harbours that official exploration has not yet reached. African headlands show details that anticipate future discoveries by generations. These documents represent cartographical treasures accumulated through centuries of systematic observation, their navigational applications enabling maritime achievements that will reshape global understanding. Dawn brings thunder of armoured hooves across cobblestones as royal sergeants pound on doors from Brittany to Provence. Coordinated raids sweep through France with precision that betrays months of meticulous preparation. Every major night seized simultaneously, every commandery secured before warning can spread. Yet the trap catches only men, not the treasures they protected. Vaults echo with mysterious emptiness. Strong rooms bear evidence of recent evacuation, and the most precious manuscripts have vanished like morning mist before royal greed. In Paris, Jacques de Molay faces his captors with dignity befitting a man who has administered territories rivaling kingdoms in extent and complexity. Philip's interrogators discover him strangely serene for one whose world has crumbled overnight, his demeanor suggesting knowledge that transcends immediate circumstances. "Your Majesty seeks gold and silver," the Grand Master observes with bitter amusement. "But the true treasures were never meant for royal hands that lack preparation for their proper use." Guillaume de Nogaret applies methods learned through studying Inquisition techniques, his procedures refined for extracting confessions from men trained to withstand conventional torture. Strappado tears shoulders from sockets, while victims describe initiation ceremonies they claim never to have witnessed. Feet burn with heated oil as knights confess to spitting on crucifixes they have spent lifetimes defending with sword and blood. Sleep deprivation and starvation break spirits that have endured Saracen captivity, forcing testimonies about blasphemous rites that exist primarily in interrogators' imaginations. Yet through manufactured confessions, fragments of genuine secrets emerge that chill even experienced inquisitors. Knights describe chambers beneath commanderies, where symbols older than Christianity mark walls and floors. Ceremonies where geometric patterns cast shadows that teach mathematical relationships through visual demonstration. Brother Geoffroy de Charny, preceptor of Normandy, endures torments that would destroy lesser men before revealing elements of actual initiation procedures. "We were guardians," he gasps through broken teeth and bleeding lips. "Keepers of wisdom that built Solomon's temple, preservers of insights that your priests call heretical, because they cannot comprehend beauty that transcends doctrinal limitations." His admissions reveal intellectual treasures whose existence exceeds royal imagination. Systematic torture produces a catalogue of impossibilities that nonetheless contain grains of disturbing truth. Knights speak of manuscripts written in scripts that predate Christian revelation, containing diagrams of machines that move without human intervention, anatomical studies that map the body's structure with precision, suggesting systematic investigation spanning generations. Under extreme duress, they describe techniques for image preservation, optical systems that focus light into controlled patterns, chemical processes that create permanent records through controlled reactions. Across Europe, other monarchs face dilemmas that pit religious loyalty against political expediency. King Edward II of England receives Philip's urgent letters demanding coordinated arrests, but English knights vanish before royal sergeants arrive at their destinations. Portuguese King Denis performs legal alchemy that transforms persecution into protection, dissolving the Knights Templar through royal decree, while simultaneously creating the Order of Christ, a maneuver that preserves structure, property, and most importantly, accumulated learning under different organizational identity. Most precious escapes occur through networks established over 2 centuries of careful relationship building. Noble families across Europe, Sinclairs in Scottish Highlands, de Bouillons in Lorraine's forests, Montségur in Pyrenean strongholds, receive midnight visitors bearing gifts more valuable than kingdoms. Manuscripts disappear into private libraries, where they await minds capable of unlocking their contents. Architectural plans find homes in castle strongrooms, and most critically, bloodline connections begin forming through carefully arranged marriages. Young knights, unmarked by distinctive white mantles that would identify their allegiances, melt into populations they have cultivated through years of patient preparation. Master craftsmen throughout Europe discover apprentices whose skills seem to exceed their apparent training, whose comprehension of proportion and mechanics astounds experienced builders. Mathematical constants preserved in Jerusalem's depths begin slow diffusion through guild systems craft brotherhoods, and scholarly networks that will carry them across centuries of political transformation. In southern France, former Cathars sympathizers remember their own persecution and open doors to men fleeing similar religious hysteria. Templar refugees bring more than architectural expertise. They carry surveying techniques that locate water sources with uncanny accuracy, agricultural methods that increase crop yields beyond apparent explanation, and most mysteriously, systems for encoding and transmitting wisdom across generations through symbolic languages embedded within apparently decorative arts. Occitan nobles find themselves enriched not through monetary gifts, but through insights that transform their lands from marginal holdings into productive estates. Irrigation systems appear, whose engineering sophistication enables cultivation in previously barren regions. Mining operations achieve unprecedented efficiency through mechanical innovations, and construction projects demonstrate structural principles that create buildings whose beauty matches their functionality. Pope Clement V, trapped between Philip's political pressure and his conscience's recognition of injustice, issues the Bull Pastoralis Praeeminentiae in November, ordering monarchs throughout Christendom to arrest all members within their domains. Yet even as papal seals attach to official parchments, other documents travel through channels that bypass conventional church hierarchy, carrying instructions that contradict public proclamations. Certain bishops and abbots receive visitors whose discretion matches their urgency, men who speak of preservation rather than persecution, of safeguarding rather than destruction. These clerics learn that they serve purposes transcending immediate institutional loyalty, protecting intellectual heritage that belongs to humanity rather than specific organizations. Monasteries become repositories for texts whose content could revolutionize human comprehension if properly studied and applied. Guillaume de Paris, the Dominican inquisitor, appointed to extract truth through systematic interrogation, applies refined techniques that reduce proud warriors to broken men, babbling confessions of impossible crimes. Yet among testimonies describing worship of mysterious heads called Baphomet and ritualistic desecration of Christian symbols, careful listeners detect fragments of genuine secrets that suggest intellectual treasures whose existence validates rather than condemns the order's essential mission. Knights describe initiation chambers, where golden ratios govern architectural proportions, creating acoustic effects that demonstrate mathematical harmony through practical application. They speak of ceremonies where geometric patterns cast shadows that teach proportional relationships through visual rather than verbal instruction. Rituals where ancient wisdom passes from master to apprentice through methods that predate and transcend specifically Christian traditions. Jacques de Molay endures 2 years of imprisonment before making his final, fatal decision. Standing before Notre Dame Cathedral on March 18, 1314, he retracts forced confessions with words that ring across the square, like bronze bells struck by skilled hands. "I confess that I am guilty of the grossest iniquity," he declares, his voice carrying clearly in crisp morning air. "But the iniquity is that I have, to my shame and dishonor, suffered myself through torture's pain and death's fear, to give utterance to falsehoods imputing scandalous sins and iniquities to an illustrious order, which has nobly served Christianity's cause throughout its existence." His curse follows immediately, spoken with authority of a man who possesses nothing left to lose. God knows the truth, and the truth will be made known. Before this year passes, both you, who condemn me unjustly, and you who are my master, will be called to account before heaven's throne. The prophecy fulfills itself with precision that suggests supernatural intervention. Philip IV dies in November, his body racked by mysterious illness, while Pope Clement V follows in April, consumed by cancer that devours him from within. Even as flames consume the Grand Master's body at the stake, wisdom he protected continues its journey toward distant shores and future minds prepared for its reception. In Scottish castles, Sinclair masons incorporate geometric principles into architecture that will puzzle visitors for centuries. Portuguese navigators apply charts to exploration that will reshape maps of the world, their accuracy enabling discoveries that appear miraculous without understanding of their systematic foundations. Italian banking families, many connected through blood or marriage to nobles who sheltered fleeing knights, develop financial innovations that echo techniques first perfected in commandery counting rooms. The Medici banks establish correspondent relationships spanning the known world, their transaction methods incorporating mathematical principles that optimize currency exchange while minimizing political risks through diversification across multiple markets. Most crucially, manuscripts survive through distribution networks that span continents. Bronze tubes sealed in ancient chambers cross dangerous waters to reach hands prepared for their reception. Architectural treatises describing proportional systems find homes with families whose descendants will become Renaissance patrons. Their libraries accumulating texts that will guide cultural development for generations. Mechanical studies showing how gears multiply, human strength disappear into collections where they await minds capable of translating theoretical insights into practical applications. Anatomical texts mapping human physiology with surgical precision travel toward institutions where they can influence medical education without triggering religious persecution, their contributions to healing arts advancing through careful integration with accepted practices. Noble bloodlines preserve more than documents. They carry genetic heritage that seems blessed with unusual gifts for spatial reasoning, mechanical intuition, and artistic sensibilities that fuse scientific observation with aesthetic beauty. Children born to families that sheltered fleeing knights display remarkable abilities that astound their tutors, suggesting inheritance of capabilities that transcend normal educational development. Wealth scattered by royal seizure and papal redistribution finds new forms through investments spanning centuries. Venetian merchant princes, Florentine banking houses, Flemish textile dynasties, all receive capital infusions that arrive through channels traceable to commanderies liquidated after 1307. This financial heritage will fund Renaissance courts, underwrite artistic patronage, and most importantly, support scholars whose researches push boundaries of acceptable learning. By 1314, when Jacques de Molay's ashes scatter on seen winds, transformation is complete. An order that began as 9 knights sharing quarters beneath temple stones has evolved into something far more durable. A network of families, guilds, and scholarly societies bound by commitment to preserving wisdom through whatever darkness political upheaval might bring. They have discovered that true immortality lies not in institutional survival, but in ideas transmitted across generations until they find minds capable of revolutionary application. Underground streams carry what surface rivers cannot bear safely, while chroniclers record the destruction of a military brotherhood. Deeper currents flow toward Italian hills, where children will be born, whose notebooks contain diagrams identical to those found beneath Solomon's foundations. Fire that consumed Jacques de Molay lights no ordinary pyre. It illuminates pathways stretching across centuries, connecting Jerusalem's ancient stones to Florence's Renaissance glories through bonds stronger than kings. more enduring than empires, more precious than any treasure earthly rulers can comprehend or control. Mist rolls across Scottish Highlands as Henry Sinclair watches stonemasons carve symbols into the walls of Rosslyn Chapel, their chisels guided by principles that most builders have forgotten. 2 centuries have passed since Jacques de Molay's ashes scattered on Seine winds, yet here in this remote corner of Europe, ancient learning lives on in carved stone and mathematical proportion. Each rose window incorporates geometric formulae within its decorative patterns. Each column follows ratios that create perfect acoustics. Each arch embeds the golden section that will guide Renaissance masters yet unborn. William de St. Clair, Henry's grandfather, had received visitors in the dark hours after Bannockburn's victory. Knights bearing no obvious allegiance appeared at Rosslyn's gates, their sealed letters carrying Robert the Bruce's personal seal, and instructions that transformed the Sinclair estate into sanctuary for men fleeing French persecution. These refugees brought more than tales of royal betrayal. They carried bronze containers whose contents would reshape Scottish architecture for centuries. Build according to these specifications, the surviving Templars instructed, unrolling parchments that showed proportional systems derived from Solomon's temple itself. Each measurement must follow ratios that create harmony between earthly construction and celestial order. Future generations will read meaning in every carved detail, decoding messages we embed for minds not yet born. The chapel's construction becomes living textbook, written in stone and timber. Master masons arriving from continental workshops bring techniques that seem impossibly sophisticated for their apparent origins, their methods enabling carvings of unprecedented intricacy and structural innovations that defy conventional engineering limitations. The famous apprentice pillar rises according to spiral geometries that demonstrate advanced comprehension of forces governing architectural stability, its twisted columns incorporating ratios that will appear centuries later in the notebooks of history's greatest genius. Brother John de Moray, one of the refugees from French persecution, supervises sculptural work that encodes botanical accuracy, requiring systematic investigations spanning generations. Carved vegetation displays species that grow in distant lands, their anatomical details revealing botanical studies that map plant structure through methodical observation. Flowers, leaves, and vines spiral around columns in patterns that teach mathematical progression through visual demonstration, their arrangements following sequences that appear decorative while transmitting educational content. Across northern Scotland, other Sinclair properties receive similar transformations. Castle Sinclair incorporates defensive innovations that demonstrate military engineering sophistication exceeding contemporary capability. Walls rise using proportional systems that distribute weight with mathematical precision while creating acoustic effects that enable communication across impossible distances. Underground passages connect structures through tunnels carved according to Roman specifications, their ventilation systems ensuring air circulation through mechanical principles that anticipate later discoveries by centuries. Meanwhile, in Portuguese territories, King Denis performs legal alchemy that preserves essential elements while transforming dangerous appearances. The Order of Christ emerges from royal decree as continuation of Templar structure under different organizational identity, its members retaining properties, privileges, and most importantly, access to accumulated cartographical treasures that will enable maritime achievements reshaping global commerce. Prince Henry the Navigator inherits more than royal blood when he establishes his maritime school at Sagres in 1419. The institution attracts scholars from across Europe, many carrying charts and instruments whose sophistication suggests access to sources beyond contemporary exploration. Mathematical techniques for celestial navigation achieve precision that enables Portuguese sailors to determine position far from familiar landmarks, their calculations based upon astronomical observations recorded in texts that trace stellar movements across centuries. The school's library contains manuscripts written in Arabic, Greek, and Latin that describe oceanic currents, wind patterns, and seasonal variations with accuracy that suggests systematic observations spanning generations. African coastlines appear on charts with details that anticipate official discoveries by decades. Their harbors marked with notations that enable safe navigation through waters that should claim ships attempting passage without proper guidance. Pedro Alvarez Cabral's expedition to India carries instruments crafted according to specifications that demonstrate advanced metallurgy, optical theory, and mathematical calculation. Astrolabes enable stellar positioning with unprecedented accuracy. Compass variations account for magnetic declination that contemporary navigation barely recognizes. And most remarkably, timekeeping devices mark longitude through mechanical precision that won't be officially achieved for centuries. In Italian territories, noble families discover themselves enriched by refugees whose contributions transcend immediate military or financial assistance. The de Bouillon lineage, scattered across northern provinces, receives architectural treatises that revolutionize their castle's defensive capabilities while creating structures whose beauty rivals their functionality. Fortification designs channel attacking forces into predetermined zones where defensive fire achieves maximum effectiveness through applied geometry. Master builders, arriving from uncertain origins, demonstrate construction techniques that enable architectural achievements surpassing Roman precedents. Bridges span rivers that previous engineers considered uncrossable, their designs distributing weight through proportional systems that create both structural stability and visual elegance. Aqueduct repairs restore water systems to functionality that Roman builders originally achieved, their success depending upon hydraulic principles preserved through careful transmission. Francesco Sforza's rise to power in Milan benefits from advisors whose strategic insights seem to anticipate political developments before they manifest. Military formations follow geometric arrangements that maximize battlefield effectiveness while minimizing casualties. Siege tactics apply mechanical advantages that overcome defensive positions through calculated leverage. And most mysteriously, intelligence gathering achieves accuracy that suggests sources beyond conventional espionage. The Sforza library accumulates manuscripts whose content exceeds typical noble collections in both scope and sophistication. Greek texts on natural philosophy describe systematic approaches to investigation that encourage direct observation over received authority. Roman military manuals reveal tactical principles applicable to contemporary warfare, and most dangerously, religious documents trace mystery traditions through multiple cultures and historical periods. Venetian merchant princes discover trading advantages that their competitors cannot comprehend or replicate. Ships arrive at calculated moments to capitalize on seasonal price fluctuations that systematic analysis predicts with unprecedented accuracy. Cargo selection follows mathematical assessments of supply and demand that optimize profit margins while minimizing commercial risks through diversification across multiple markets and commodities. The Venetian arsenal benefits from engineering innovations that enable shipbuilding on unprecedented scale and efficiency. Construction techniques multiply productivity through mechanical advantages that reduce labor requirements while improving quality. their designs incorporating structural principles that create vessels capable of oceanic voyages previously considered impossible. These innovations trace their origins to texts that document Roman naval architecture with engineering precision. German territories witness emergence of craft guild structures that preserve ancient techniques while adapting to changing political circumstances. The Compagnons du Devoir creates educational systems that transmit proportional relationships through hands-on construction projects. Their apprenticeship programs ensuring that mathematical constants governing harmonious building pass from master to student through direct demonstration rather than abstract instruction. Guild workshops throughout Germanic regions demonstrate capabilities that exceed their apparent resources and training. Metalworking achieves alloy compositions that suggest systematic comprehension of material properties developed through extensive experimentation. Stone carving produces architectural elements with precision requiring mathematical instruments of unprecedented accuracy. Their proportional systems creating visual harmony that speaks to observers' aesthetic sensibilities while encoding educational content. Master craftsmen travel between cities, carrying tools and techniques that enable construction projects of extraordinary sophistication. Cathedral repairs restore structural integrity through methods that contemporary builders cannot explain. Their success depending upon engineering principles that treat architectural loads as mathematical problems solvable through calculated intervention. These achievements create reputations that attract commissions from patrons seeking similar innovations. In French territories beyond royal persecution, Cathar sympathizers and other religious minorities provide sanctuary for refugees whose contributions enrich their communities in unexpected ways. Agricultural productivity increases through irrigation techniques that channel water systems with engineering precision, enabling cultivation in regions previously considered marginal for farming. Mechanical mills operate with efficiency that multiplies grain production while reducing human labor requirements. Underground streams of learning flow through channels that bypass conventional ecclesiastical hierarchy, reaching clerics whose intellectual curiosity exceeds their doctrinal caution. Certain bishops and abbots receive manuscripts whose content challenges official church positions, while offering insights that could advance Christian theology through systematic investigation rather than blind acceptance of traditional authority. Monastery scriptoriums begin producing illuminated manuscripts whose decorative elements incorporate mathematical formulae, geometric patterns, and proportional relationships that encode educational content within apparently purely aesthetic presentations. These books preserve technical specifications through symbolic languages that appear ornamental to casual observers while remaining accessible to minds trained in interpretive techniques. Mathematical instruction evolves in cathedral schools, where certain masters possess access to Greek texts that extend numerical concepts beyond contemporary academic limits. Students learn calculation methods that enable engineering applications, geometric principles that guide architectural projects, and most importantly, systematic approaches to investigation that treat natural philosophy as legitimate scholarly pursuit rather than dangerous deviation from accepted doctrine. By 1400, transformation reaches completion across Europe as scattered networks achieve coordination that transcends their apparent separation. Noble families, craft guilds, religious houses, and scholarly societies operate according to shared purposes that unite them in common mission, despite geographic distance and political differences. Ancient wisdom flows through channels that appear disconnected while serving unified objectives. Bloodline preservation becomes art form, refined through generations of careful marriage alliances that concentrate inherited abilities while dispersing political risks. Children displaying unusual gifts, spatial reasoning that astounds their tutors, mechanical intuition that surpasses their training, artistic sensibilities that fuse observation with aesthetic beauty, find themselves guided towards suitable partners whose families guard complementary fragments of accumulated learning. French nobles who escaped royal persecution established themselves in Italian city-states where different political structures offer greater intellectual freedom. The Orsini, Colonna, and other Roman families receive infusions of northern capital that arrive with scholarly advisors whose libraries contain texts in Greek, Arabic, and Latin that demonstrate sophistication exceeding their alleged origins. Educational innovations prepare selected minds for investigations that transcend conventional academic boundaries. Young nobles receive instruction, combining artistic training with mathematical rigor, anatomical study with mechanical innovation, natural philosophy with practical experimentation. These curricula follow sequences designed to reconstruct ancient comprehension through systematic investigation, rather than relying solely on preserved texts whose content might prove incomplete or corrupted. Florentine workshops benefit from master craftsmen whose techniques exceed their apparent backgrounds. Metalworking achieves precision through alloy compositions that suggest systematic exploration of material properties. Textile production innovates through mechanical improvements that multiply productivity while maintaining quality. And most remarkably, artistic instruction incorporates mathematical principles governing proportion, perspective, and optical effects with comprehensive thoroughness. Guild networks span Europe through connections that appear commercial but serve deeper educational purposes. Master masons in Paris correspond with colleagues in Florence about architectural innovations, sharing technical drawings that encode geometric relationships within apparently decorative designs. Metalworkers in German cities exchange information with Italian contemporaries about alloy compositions and forging techniques that demonstrate sophistication beyond their supposed origins. Secret symbols evolve to meet changing circumstances while maintaining essential meanings derived from ancient sources. Rose windows in Gothic cathedrals incorporate mathematical relationships that govern acoustic perfection and structural stability simultaneously. Geometric floor patterns in guild halls map proportional constants that guide construction projects while serving as educational devices for apprentices, learning through visual demonstration rather than verbal instruction. Portuguese exploration pushes boundaries of geographical comprehension through navigational techniques that anticipate discoveries rather than merely recording them after the fact. Prince Henry's school attracts scholars from across Europe, many carrying charts and instruments whose sophistication suggests access to cartographical sources beyond contemporary exploration and official expedition records. African coastlines appear on Portuguese maps before expeditions officially reach them, suggesting intelligence networks that span continents and cultures through connections established during Templar expansion across Mediterranean territories. These charts enable systematic exploration that proceeds according to planned sequences rather than random investigation, their accuracy depending upon astronomical calculations preserved from ancient sources. Most crucially, educational systems develop that prepare selected minds for responsibilities transcending immediate circumstances. Young nobles receive instruction in mathematics, natural philosophy, and practical arts alongside traditional training in warfare and statecraft. Their education, following curricula designed to reconstruct ancient comprehension through methodical investigation, combined with preserved textual guidance. By 1450, as Renaissance humanism begins flowering in Italian courts, hidden networks have achieved their essential purpose through 2 centuries of careful cultivation. Ancient learning has survived persecution, political upheaval, and cultural transformation, while evolving to meet changing circumstances without losing essential content. More importantly, it has prepared soil for revolutionary synthesis that will transcend its separate components. In Tuscan hills where olive groves catch morning light and Roman roads still bear travelers' footsteps, conditions ripen for the network's greatest triumph. Wealthy patrons seek cultural distinction through supporting innovative arts. Scholars hunger for classical texts that expand their historical perspective. And most importantly, intellectual climate encourages investigations that previous generations would have deemed heretical or impossibly ambitious. Here, in this cradle of Renaissance innovation, where ancient secrets have taken deepest root, the preservation network prepares for culmination that will justify centuries of sacrifice and careful guardianship. Underground rivers that began flowing from Jerusalem's depths now approach their destined confluence, ready to nourish genius capable of synthesis that transcends accumulated components while honoring their essential contributions to human advancement. Spring rain falls on Tuscan hills as Caterina, a peasant girl from Anciano, brings forth a child whose destiny will reshape human comprehension of the possible. April 15th, 1452. The stars align in configurations that astrologers will debate for centuries, while in the valley below, the village of Vinci sleeps peacefully beside the Arno's tributaries. Ser Piero da Vinci, the child's father, practices law in Florence's marble halls, moving among merchants whose wealth springs from sources deeper than immediate commerce. He does not yet comprehend that his illegitimate son carries in his blood the convergence of streams that have flowed underground for 3 centuries. Caterina herself descends from families whose ancestors served Cathar nobles in Languedoc's mountain strongholds, their bloodlines carrying genetic heritage that manifests in unusual spatial reasoning and artistic sensibilities. Her own grandfather had spoken of visitors who arrived after the Great Persecution, men bearing scrolls and instruments who taught construction techniques that enabled their village church to achieve acoustic perfection through proportional relationships that seemed impossibly sophisticated for rural craftsmen. Ser Piero's legal practice brings him into contact with Florentine families whose cultural ambitions rest upon foundations laid by careful accumulation across generations. His clients include nobles whose private libraries contain manuscripts that universities insist are medieval forgeries, merchants whose trading advantages derive from navigational techniques that exceed contemporary capability, and most mysteriously, artisans whose workshop innovations demonstrate engineering sophistication that suggests access to sources beyond conventional training. The infant Leonardo grows to boyhood in countryside, where remnants of ancient wisdom surface through practical applications that astound their observers. Watermills along the Arno operate with mechanical efficiency that multiplies productivity beyond apparent possibility, their gear systems incorporating ratios that optimize force transmission through calculated relationships. Agricultural techniques produce yields that transform marginal lands into productive estates, their success depending upon irrigation methods that channel water uphill through engineering principles. Village craftsmen possess skills that exceed their apparent origins and training opportunities. Blacksmiths achieve alloy compositions that create tools of unprecedented sharpness and durability, their metallurgical expertise suggesting systematic exploration of material properties through controlled experimentation. Stonemasons carve architectural elements with precision, requiring mathematical instruments of remarkable accuracy. Their proportional systems creating visual harmony that speaks to aesthetic sensibilities while encoding educational content. Young Leonardo displays gifts that astound his tutors and worry his family through their implications. Spatial reasoning enables him to visualize three-dimensional relationships from two-dimensional drawings with accuracy that suggests inherited capability rather than learned skill. Mechanical intuition allows him to comprehend how machines function through systematic observation that penetrates surface appearance to reveal underlying force relationships governing operation. At age 14, Ser Piero apprentices his son to Andrea del Verrocchio, master of arts whose Florentine workshop has become the peninsula's premier center for innovation, combining aesthetic achievement with technical advancement. Verrocchio's reputation rests upon bronze castings of unprecedented precision, architectural projects that demonstrate mastery of proportion systems, and most mysteriously, mechanical devices whose operation suggests comprehension of engineering principles beyond contemporary theoretical limits. The maestro's workshop occupies a palazzo whose basement chambers contain more than conventional tools and artistic materials. Bronze tubes sealed with symbols that echo older marks hold architectural drawings showing structural relationships that govern cathedral construction. Mechanical studies revealing how force multiplies through calculated arrangements. And most remarkably, anatomical texts that map human physiology with scientific precision derived from systematic dissection programs. Boy, Verrocchio addresses his newest apprentice with unusual intensity. What you learn here extends beyond techniques for mixing pigments or carving marble. True mastery requires comprehension that bridges apparent divisions between artistic creation and natural philosophy, between aesthetic beauty and mathematical truth. Are you prepared for instruction that transcends conventional boundaries? Leonardo's response reveals intuitive grasp of implications that most apprentices would miss entirely. Master, if God wrote his wisdom throughout creation, in the proportions that govern flower petals and the forces that move planetary spheres, then studying his handiwork through any legitimate method serves rather than contradicts devotional purposes. The answer demonstrates intellectual maturity that suggests preparation for advanced responsibilities. Verrocchio's first lessons combine practical instruction with theoretical foundations that appear unusually sophisticated for conventional artistic training. Perspective techniques incorporate optical principles that explain how the eye processes visual information. Their mathematical calculations enabling creation of dimensional illusions that seem impossibly realistic. Color relationships follow harmonic progressions that mirror musical intervals, demonstrating connections between sensory experiences that systematic investigation can map and predict. The workshop's other apprentices marvel at Leonardo's rapid mastery of techniques that require years of practice to achieve. Sandro Botticelli observes the boy's ability to capture facial expressions that reveal psychological states through subtle muscular adjustments, his portraits displaying emotional depth that suggests intimate familiarity with anatomical texts describing neural pathways. Pietro Perugino notes Leonardo's fascination with human movement, his figure studies showing dynamic relationships between bone structure and muscular action that demonstrates scientific observation combined with artistic sensitivity. Lorenzo di Credi witnesses experiments with mechanical devices that demonstrate mathematical sophistication exceeding formal educational background. Gear arrangements multiply force through ratios that optimize efficiency while minimizing material requirements. their designs revealing familiarity with texts that treat mechanical advantage as calculable quantity rather than empirical approximation. Hydraulic pumps achieve lifting capabilities that seem to violate natural limitations, their operation depending upon pressure relationships that ancient engineers documented through systematic investigation. Access to Lorenzo de' Medici's private collections opens intellectual worlds that conventional scholarship barely imagines. The Magnificent's grandfather had accumulated 47 authentic Greek texts on geometry, mechanics, and natural philosophy through agents who scoured monastery libraries across Europe and Byzantine territories. These manuscripts include works by Hero of Alexandria, revealing pneumatic forces that power mechanical devices, treatises attributed to Archimedes that describe leverage calculations and hydrostatic principles, and most remarkably, compilations of proportional studies that map relationships between musical harmony, architectural stability, and optical effects. Lorenzo's Friday gatherings at his villa attract scholars whose researches push boundaries of acceptable inquiry into territories that previous generations considered heretical or impossibly ambitious. Marsilio Ficino translates Hermetic texts that reveal geometric constants governing natural relationships, their insights bridging apparent gaps between spiritual development and intellectual advancement. Pico della Mirandola investigates connections between Hebrew mystical traditions and Greek philosophical methods, his syntheses suggesting common sources that transcend cultural and historical boundaries. Most significantly, these discussions assume familiarity with sources that universities insist do not exist in authentic forms. Arabic translations of Greek scientific texts demonstrate precision that suggests direct access to original sources rather than corrupted copies filtered through multiple linguistic transitions. Astronomical observations recorded in Babylonian cuneiform enable celestial predictions that anticipate actual planetary movements by centuries, their accuracy depending upon mathematical calculations of unprecedented sophistication. Giovanni Pico della Mirandola becomes Leonardo's informal instructor in subjects extending far beyond conventional artistic preparation. The young nobleman's manuscript collections, inherited through bloodlines tracing back to Jerusalem's fallen kingdom, contain texts revealing numerical relationships that govern everything from musical harmony to architectural proportion. Hebrew mystical traditions demonstrate how numbers encode deeper meanings through systematic correspondences, their gematria providing interpretive keys for unlocking hidden significance within apparently mundane observations. Under Pico's guidance, Leonardo begins recognizing that true mastery requires synthesis transcending apparent divisions between different fields of investigation. Arithmetic serves artistic composition through proportional relationships that create visual stability, while guiding viewers' attention through calculated sequences. Natural philosophy informs artistic technique through systematic observation of how light behaves under various conditions, how materials respond to environmental changes, how human anatomy expresses psychological states through physical manifestations. Verrocchio's commission portfolio exposes Leonardo to patrons whose cultural interests reflect purposes deeper than conventional artistic decoration. The Medici family requests bronze works incorporating geometric relationships derived from ancient sources, their proportional systems creating optical effects that demonstrate mathematical harmony through aesthetic achievement. Venetian merchants order devices that combine artistic beauty with practical functionality, clocks whose mechanisms achieve unprecedented accuracy, hydraulic pumps disguised as decorative fountains, calculating instruments that perform arithmetic operations through mechanical manipulation. Each project requires Leonardo to synthesize artistic training with technical knowledge that extends beyond conventional workshop instruction. Bronze casting demands metallurgical expertise that optimizes alloy composition for specific applications, their formulations requiring systematic exploration of material properties through controlled experimentation. Architectural elements must satisfy both aesthetic criteria and structural requirements, their designs demonstrating harmonic proportions while supporting calculated loads across extended periods. Lorenzo's library provides Leonardo access to texts that expand his comprehension of natural philosophy beyond contemporary academic limitations. Roman engineering manuals describe construction techniques that enable architectural achievements surpassing modern capability, their specifications requiring mathematical calculations that treat structural loads as precisely calculable quantities. Greek medical texts reveal anatomical relationships through systematic dissection programs that map physiological function with scientific precision. The optical studies prove most transformative for Leonardo's developing artistic philosophy. Ancient texts describe how the eye functions as biological instrument for processing visual information, their insights enabling artistic techniques that manipulate perception through calculated effects. Perspective calculations create dimensional illusions that seem impossibly realistic, while color relationships exploit neural responses to achieve emotional effects that transcend mere aesthetic preference. Florentine guild workshops throughout the city demonstrate capabilities that suggest coordination beyond apparent competitive relationships. Master craftsmen share techniques that enable innovations transcending individual workshop capabilities, their collaboration producing mechanical devices whose sophistication requires comprehensive technical instruction, spanning multiple specialized disciplines: metalworking, stone carving, wood construction, textile production. All achieve unprecedented quality through methods that appear coordinated rather than independently developed. The city's architectural monuments begin revealing secrets to observers trained in symbolic interpretation. The cathedral's dome incorporates proportional relationships that distribute structural loads with perfect efficiency, while creating acoustic effects that amplify whispered prayers throughout the vast interior. Brunelleschi's other projects demonstrate comprehension of mechanical advantages that multiply human construction capabilities through systematic application of leverage calculations and force distribution techniques. Most mysteriously, mathematical instruction appears available through sources that bypass conventional academic channels. Young artists and craftsmen demonstrate numerical sophistication that exceeds their formal educational opportunities, their calculations enabling engineering applications that require advanced theoretical preparation. These capabilities suggest access to instructional methods that transmit complex concepts through practical demonstration, combined with theoretical guidance. Leonardo's notebooks begin documenting observations that synthesize artistic training, with investigative approaches derived from multiple sources. Water flow studies reveal hydraulic forces that could power mills without rivers, channel irrigation through calculated routes, and create fountain displays that seem to operate through impossible mechanisms. Anatomical sketches demonstrate comprehension of muscular and skeletal relationships that require systematic dissection programs violating church prohibitions. The mechanical designs proliferating across his pages display increasing sophistication that suggests exposure to texts describing engineering principles with scientific precision. Gear systems multiply human strength through calculated ratios that optimize efficiency while minimizing material requirements. Flying machines incorporate aerodynamic insights derived from bird anatomy studies, their wing shapes following proportional relationships that ancient texts describe through systematic observation of natural flight mechanics. Calculating devices appear among his sketches, with designs that enable arithmetic operations through mechanical manipulation of numerical relationships. Bronze gears arrange in patterns that perform mathematical functions through physical movement, their operation demonstrating how abstract concepts can manifest through material construction, guided by theoretical comprehension. These innovations anticipate developments that won't be officially achieved for centuries. Luca Pacioli's arrival in Florence provides Leonardo access to mathematical manuscripts that bridge ancient wisdom with contemporary application. The Franciscan scholars' treatises on divine proportion reveal how the same numerical relationships that govern musical harmony appear throughout architectural construction, human anatomy, and natural phenomena. His accounting methods demonstrate systematic approaches to commercial calculation. But more importantly, his geometric studies show how structural constants create both aesthetic beauty and practical functionality. Pacioli's private collection includes texts that extend geometric principles beyond conventional academic limits. Works allegedly by Euclid that describe relationships between circular and rectilinear forms. Treatises attributed to Apollonius that map conic sections with mathematical precision, and most mysteriously, compilations of proportional studies that connect architectural stability with aesthetic harmony through underlying mathematical relationships. Patronage relationships expose Leonardo to intellectual networks spanning Europe through connections deeper than immediate political alliances. Giuliano de' Medici introduces him to scholars whose libraries contain manuscripts in multiple languages that demonstrate sophistication exceeding their alleged origins. These collections influence architectural projects, showing comprehension of structural forces beyond contemporary capability, mechanical innovations that multiply productivity through systematic application of engineering principles. The Sforza family's growing interest in Leonardo's capabilities represents another crucial connection, as his reputation expands beyond Florentine boundaries. Ludovico il Moro possesses manuscript collections inherited through marriage alliances tracing back to noble houses that provided sanctuary for refugees from French persecution. These texts reveal engineering applications suitable for both peaceful construction and military necessity, their content requiring minds capable of synthesis that transcends apparent divisions between theoretical knowledge and practical implementation. By 1480, Leonardo has absorbed influences that transform conventional apprenticeship into preparation for revolutionary achievement, extending far beyond artistic excellence. Ancient texts have revealed forces and motion governing mechanical operation, numerical relationships that appear throughout natural and constructed forms, and most importantly, investigative approaches that treat natural philosophy and artistic creation as unified endeavors serving common purposes. Educational exposure through multiple sources enables comprehension that exceeds the sum of individual components. Engineering principles derived from Roman sources combine with optical insights from Greek texts, anatomical studies preserved through careful transmission, merge with mathematical constants that govern proportional harmony, and most remarkably, artistic techniques incorporate scientific observation with systematic thoroughness that treats aesthetic beauty as manifestation of underlying natural order. Florentine workshops hum with anticipation as Lorenzo's cultural court reaches unprecedented heights of intellectual sophistication. Artists compete not merely for aesthetic excellence, but for innovations demonstrating mastery of principles derived from sources their rivals cannot access or comprehend. Architectural projects incorporate structural systems beyond contemporary theoretical limits, while mechanical devices proliferate with complexity, suggesting coordinated instruction rather than individual invention. Communication networks span Europe through correspondence that appears scholarly, but serves purposes transcending immediate intellectual exchange. Technical drawings travel between Florence and courts in France, Milan, Naples, and beyond, their contents encoding geometric relationships that enable architectural innovations, mechanical designs that reveal construction methods, and most importantly, genealogical information mapping bloodlines carrying inherited capabilities across multiple generations. Intellectual climate throughout Italian territories encourages investigations that previous political circumstances would have rendered impossible or dangerously heretical. Religious authorities, distracted by Protestant challenges to papal authority, prove less vigilant regarding natural philosophy that demonstrates divine order through discoverable relationships. Secular patrons compete for cultural distinction through supporting innovations that advance human capability while enhancing their territory's prosperity and military effectiveness. The stage stands prepared for genius to manifest in forms that will astound contemporary observers, while seeming impossible unless one comprehends what streams of ancient learning have converged to guide extraordinary achievement. Leonardo da Vinci approaches maturity equipped with insights that span cultures and centuries, his consciousness prepared for synthesis that will transcend accumulated components while honoring their essential contributions to human advancement. Networks established through centuries of careful cultivation now focus their accumulated wisdom towards supporting development of capabilities that will revolutionize artistic creation, scientific investigation, and engineering applications simultaneously. Ancient secrets preserved through persecution, transmitted through bloodlines, and encoded within artistic and architectural monuments await expression through mind, capable of bridging apparent divisions while advancing human comprehension beyond all previous limitations. The hidden thread connecting Solomon's temple to Renaissance workshops grows taut with anticipation, as all elements align for manifestation of genius that will seem miraculous unless one traces its sources through channels preserved across centuries of careful guardianship. What began with 9 nights beneath Jerusalem's stones approaches culmination in consciousness, prepared to unlock humanity's accumulated intellectual heritage while advancing it toward revolutionary applications serving all civilization. Wet plaster gleams in candlelight as Leonardo raises his brush to Christ's face, the final touch that will complete 7 years of labor in Santa Maria delle Grazi's refectory. Monks shuffle past in darkness, unaware that the man working by flickering flame encodes secrets that began beneath Solomon's temple. Each apostle's placement follows calculations found in Luca Pacioli's hidden manuscripts, their positions creating triangular harmonies that echo the sacred ratios governing cathedral construction from Chartres to Constantinople. "Master," whispers his assistant Marco, grinding pigments in the corner shadows. The prior grows impatient. He says you paint slower than God created the world. Leonardo's eyes never leave his work. God had eternity. I have only borrowed time to capture what he built into creation itself. His brush traces the curve of John's garment, the fabric falling in patterns that mirror water flow studies filling his notebooks. Each fold calculated to guide the viewer's eye through visual pathways that Greek optical texts describe with surgical precision. The composition defies every convention Dominican monks expect from religious art. No golden halos crown the apostles' heads. Their sanctity radiates through positioning that creates luminous effects through pure geometry. Christ sits centered within architectural lines that form a triangle, its apex touching his brow at the exact point where ancient builders placed cornerstones in temple construction. The disciples arrange themselves in groups of 3, their gestures creating secondary patterns that echo Islamic decorative schemes preserved in Cordoban manuscripts. Judas leans backward, his movement carving a V shape that future interpreters will assign mystical significance, not understanding that this angular form represents the eternal tension between revelation and concealment that marks all esoteric traditions. His placement disrupts visual harmony intentionally, creating discord that mirrors spiritual betrayal through applied aesthetics rather than symbolic convention. In his workshop beneath Verrocchio's old palazzo, Leonardo studies anatomical drawings that map how facial muscles reveal inner emotions through micro-movements invisible to casual observation. Greek physicians had documented these connections between physical expression and psychological states, their insights preserved in texts that guide his brushwork as he captures the exact moment when 12 men realize their world will end before sunrise. Peter's hand grips a knife, its blade catching light at angles corresponding to stellar positions recorded in Arabic astronomical tables. The weapon points toward bread that Christ has blessed, creating tension between nourishment and violence, between sacred ritual and mortal betrayal. Every gesture carries multiple meanings, layered like glazes, each interpretation revealing deeper truths to minds prepared for systematic decoding. Years later, when Francesco del Giocondo commissions his wife's portrait, Leonardo transforms commercial transaction into meditation on beauty's mathematical foundation. Lisa Gherardini poses in his new workshop near Santa Croce, sunlight streaming through windows that illuminate her face, according to calculations he has perfected through decades of optical experimentation. "Hold that expression," Leonardo murmurs, mixing pigments that will create effects no contemporary artist can replicate. Think of secrets you have never told, of knowledge that exists beyond words. Lisa's smile shifts subtly, her features settling into the enigmatic expression that will puzzle viewers for centuries, not understanding that her beauty reflects systematic application of proportional constants that appear throughout nature. Behind her, Leonardo paints landscapes that demonstrate geological insights spanning millennia. Rocky outcroppings reveal how water carves stone through persistent erosion, their formations documenting Earth's ancient history through systematic observation that treats terrain as text written by natural forces. Atmospheric effects show how light behaves in air of varying density, creating depth through understanding of optical phenomena that Greek texts describe in detail. The painting's technical innovations surpass mere artistic achievement. Sfumato effects that blur boundaries between colors mirror how vision actually processes information, transitioning gradually between tones rather than using sharp divisions that contradict neural reality. These techniques draw upon anatomical studies of how the eye functions, transforming scientific investigation into aesthetic innovation that speaks directly to viewers' perceptual systems. In darker hours, when official commissions cannot support his researches, Leonardo accepts patronage from Giuliano de' Medici, whose private library contains manuscripts that universities insist are medieval forgeries. Persian texts reveal how numbers encode hidden meanings through systematic correspondences, their insights guiding architectural studies, where columns incorporate ratios derived from Solomon's temple measurements. Your notebooks contain diagrams that trouble certain minds, Giuliano observes during one late-night session, examining sketches of flying machines that blend bird anatomy with engineering calculations. Perhaps discretion serves wisdom better than bold display. Leonardo seals his most dangerous designs in bronze tubes, following preservation methods that echo ancient practices. Understanding seeks minds prepared to receive it, he replies, his pen moving in mirror script that conceals while recording. Truth endures whether kings approve or priests condemn. His mechanical inventions proliferate across hidden pages with sophistication that won't be officially achieved for centuries. Calculating devices perform arithmetic through bronze gears, arranged in patterns that treat abstract numbers as physical realities. Helicopter designs incorporate aerodynamic insights derived from hawk flight observations, their rotational mechanics revealing familiarity with texts that document systematic experimentation with powered flight. Steam engines appear among his sketches, their operation based upon pneumatic forces that Roman engineers explored through controlled testing. These designs suggest access to experimental traditions that bypass conventional scholarly transmission, arriving through bloodlines that preserve practical wisdom alongside theoretical knowledge. Military commissions from Italian princes provide opportunities to implement insights gained through manuscript study. His siege engines apply leverage calculations that multiply human force through systematic advantage, their devastating effectiveness proving that theoretical knowledge translates into practical power. Fortification designs channel attacking armies into zones where defensive fire achieves maximum killing potential through applied geometry. At Amboise, in his final French residence, Leonardo works by firelight on anatomical studies that push beyond legal boundaries. Corpses, obtained through Melzi's careful negotiations, reveal muscular and skeletal structures that Greek physicians had mapped with accuracy surpassing contemporary medicine. Neural pathways traced through systematic dissection explain how sensations travel from fingertips to brain, how vision processes light into consciousness. Master, Francesco Melzi asks, grinding herbs for pigments that will capture skin tones with unprecedented accuracy. Do these studies not risk ecclesiastical condemnation? Leonardo's scalpel pauses above exposed tissue that demonstrates how blood flows through chambers of the human heart. The Church condemns ignorance more than investigation, he replies. God wrote his wisdom in flesh as surely as in scripture. Those who forbid reading either text serve darkness rather than light. His architectural drawings demonstrate synthesis spanning cultures and centuries. Egyptian temple proportions appear in villa designs commissioned by French nobility, their internal spaces creating acoustic effects that amplify whispered conversations through calculated resonance. Gothic cathedral techniques merge with classical Roman construction methods, producing structural innovations that support unprecedented architectural spans. Water engineering projects reveal comprehensive grasp of hydraulic forces that contemporary understanding barely encompasses. Canal systems designed for Italian city-states incorporate principles that allow water to flow uphill through calculated pressure differentials, their locks raising vessels between elevations through systematic manipulation of fluid dynamics. These innovations draw upon Roman engineering texts preserved through transmission channels that bypass conventional academic pathways. Sacred geometry appears throughout his religious commissions, transforming conventional iconography through systematic application of harmonic ratios. The Madonna of the Rocks exists in versions that demonstrate evolving mastery of how symbolic content embeds within apparently traditional narrative. Virgin and child figures arrange according to triangular compositions that create visual stability while encoding deeper meanings for viewers possessing interpretive keys. Background landscapes reveal geological knowledge extending far beyond contemporary learning, depicting rock stratification that documents Earth's formation through systematic observation of natural processes. Plant life demonstrates botanical understanding that treats each species as adaptation to specific environmental pressures, their forms reflecting evolutionary responses that systematic investigation can decode and predict. By 1515, As Leonardo's creative powers reach their zenith, his synthesis transcends cultural boundaries that limit lesser minds. Ancient Egyptian surveying techniques influence his cartographic projects. Greek natural philosophy guides his engineering innovations. Roman construction methods inform his architectural designs. Islamic pattern-making enriches his decorative schemes. Hebrew mystical traditions deepen his symbolic vocabulary. This integration reflects more than scholarly eclecticism. It represents living embodiment of humanity's accumulated wisdom, flowing through consciousness prepared to unlock its secrets. Each painting becomes preservation device, encoding insights that ensure essential understanding survives even if conscious knowledge of sources disappears. Symbolic content awaits future minds capable of systematic decoding, guaranteeing that wisdom accumulated across millennia continues its journey toward generations yet unborn. In Château de Clos, Lucet's upper chamber, paralysis slowly claiming his right hand, Leonardo seals his most precious manuscripts in containers designed to survive centuries. Bronze tubes bear symbols that echo those found beneath Jerusalem's stones, their contents preserving traditions that began with 9 nights and culminate in revolutionary achievement that reshapes human comprehension of the possible. The circle closes, yet never ends. Ancient secrets preserved through persecution find voice in masterworks that speak across centuries, their encoded wisdom awaiting minds capable of deciphering languages written in pigment and geometry, in shadow and light, in the eternal dialogue between knowledge and mystery that drives human understanding ever forward toward illumination. Rome's ancient stones reflect firelight as the master descends marble steps into chambers that have not seen visitors for decades. The year is 1513, and Pope Leo X has summoned him not for public commissions, but for work that must remain hidden from history's eyes. Giovanni de' Medici, now wearing the papal tiara, leads the way through passages carved from living rock beneath the Vatican itself, their walls bearing symbols that predate Christian occupation by centuries. "What I show you now," the Pope whispers, his voice echoing in stone corridors, "was preserved by my ancestors through trials that nearly consumed our bloodline. The Medici have guarded more than banking secrets, Master. We have been custodians of mysteries that stretch back to Solomon's temple itself." The chamber they enter takes the artist's breath away. Bronze tubes line shelves carved from bedrock, their surfaces bearing marks identical to those he has sketched in his private notebooks. But these containers hold more than engineering treatises or anatomical studies. Here rest the sacred relics that 9 knights discovered in Jerusalem's depths, fragments that will challenge everything Christianity teaches about its own foundations. "The shroud," Leo Thix says simply, gesturing toward a stone sarcophagus that dominates the chamber's center. Not the fabrication displayed in Turin, but the true burial cloth that wrapped our Savior's body. The Templars found it beneath the Temple Mount, along with documents that... He pauses, his papal confidence wavering. Documents that reveal truths the Church has spent centuries concealing. The master approaches the ancient container with trembling hands. Inside, wrapped in silk that crumbles at his touch, lies linen bearing the faint impression of a human form. But this is no mere relic. The image appears to be created through processes that defy contemporary comprehension, as if light itself had somehow burned into the fabric through forces beyond natural explanation. "How is this possible?" he breathes, studying markings that seem to shift in the flickering torchlight. No pigment created this image. No artist's hand guided its formation. The documents speak of techniques lost when Alexandria burned. The Pope replies, opening scrolls that bear text in Greek, Aramaic, and scripts that predate both languages. Methods for capturing light permanently, for preserving images through chemical processes that the ancients mastered, but we have forgotten. Until now, the manuscripts reveal procedures that make the artist's pulse quicken with recognition. Here are descriptions of camera obscura techniques refined beyond anything he has attempted. Chemical formulations that fix images onto treated surfaces. Optical systems that concentrate light into patterns that burn permanent impressions into prepared materials. The wisdom represents synthesis of natural philosophy, chemistry, and engineering that no single mind should possess, unless guided by insights preserved across millennia. Your Holiness, he says carefully, what you ask risks not merely my reputation, but my soul. To recreate such images, to experiment with forces that touch divine flesh. Leo X places a hand on the master's shoulder, his grip conveying desperation that papal authority cannot mask. The true shroud deteriorates beyond preservation. Within decades, perhaps years, it will crumble to dust, taking with it the most sacred proof of Christ's resurrection. But if we can create a perfect reproduction using the same techniques that formed the original image, techniques that demonstrate divine power working through natural law, then humanity retains its most precious testimony to salvation itself. The work begins in chambers hollowed from Vatican foundations by Roman engineers centuries past. The master constructs optical apparatus following diagrams preserved in archives. His devices incorporating lenses ground according to specifications that require mathematical precision, surpassing contemporary glassworking capabilities. Chemical formulations derived from Egyptian texts produce compounds that react to concentrated light with sensitivity that seems impossible without systematic experimentation spanning generations. Francesco Melzi assists in grinding materials whose components include substances that European merchants barely recognize, compounds imported through trade networks that trace back to Asian sources where alchemical traditions preserved ancient formulations. Silver salts react with light exposure in patterns that create gradual image formation, their effects measurable through systematic observation that treats sacred mystery as natural phenomenon governed by discoverable laws. Master, Melzi observes, as they prepare photosensitive treatments, these processes suggest that divine miracles operate through forces that human investigation can comprehend and reproduce. Does this not diminish their sacred character? Da Vinci adjusts optical arrangements that focus candlelight into precise patterns across treated fabric. Perhaps the greatest miracle lies not in suspending natural law, but in encoding truth within creation itself. If God wrote his wisdom in the movements of stars and the structure of flowers, why should his greatest revelation not employ the same systematic relationships that govern all existence? The recreation requires months of systematic experimentation. The artist positions himself as model for the figure that will appear on the new shroud, his own features serving as template for the divine countenance through techniques that blur boundaries between art, science, and sacred mystery. Optical systems project his image onto chemically prepared linen through exposure processes that require precise timing and controlled lighting conditions. But this work represents only the surface layer of deeper revelations. The papal archives contain manuscripts that expose Christianity's hidden foundations, documents that trace Jesus' teachings back to mystery traditions that flourished in Egypt and Babylon, centuries before Abraham walked from Ur. John the Baptist appears throughout these texts, not merely as Christ's forerunner, but as initiate in wisdom schools that preserved ancient learning through symbolic rituals and coded teaching. The master's notebooks begin filling with studies that synthesize Christian narrative with esoteric traditions, spanning cultures and millennia. The Baptist's emphasis on water baptism reflects initiation practices that Egyptian priests used to prepare candidates for deeper mysteries, his ascetic lifestyle echoing disciplines that Greek philosophers recommended for intellectual purification. His prophetic utterances incorporating numerical codes that Hebrew mystics developed for transmitting dangerous insights. These revelations transform the artist's comprehension of his own works. The enigmatic smile of John the Baptist in his paintings now reveals its source in mystery tradition, iconography that uses facial expression to signal initiation levels. The figure's raised finger, pointing not merely toward heaven, but toward specific stellar positions that encode cosmological teachings. The Mona Lisa's landscape background incorporates geological formations that appear in baptismal imagery throughout esoteric literature, their symbolic significance hidden from casual observers while remaining accessible to prepared minds. The revelation grows dangerous, warns Cardinal Bibbiena during one late-night visit to the hidden chambers. Whispers reach unfriendly ears about experiments conducted in darkness beneath God's own house. Perhaps wisdom counsels completing this work in locations removed from ecclesiastical observation. But the master has uncovered connections that make retreat impossible. The Shroud Project has revealed systematic techniques for image preservation that extend far beyond single artifacts, methods that could revolutionize how information transfers across generations while remaining hidden from hostile authorities. If applied correctly, these processes could encode entire libraries of learning onto surfaces that appear decorative to casual examination, while containing textual content for those possessing decoding keys. Through autumn months of 1513, working by candlelight that flickers across treated fabric, Da Vinci perfects procedures that will astound future investigators. The image forming on his recreated shroud demonstrates anatomical accuracy that requires intimate familiarity with crucifixion trauma, physiological comprehension that comes only from systematic dissection of human corpses, and most mysteriously, optical effects that suggest formation through light sources of unprecedented intensity and focus. Yet even as this sacred deception takes shape beneath his hands, the master recognizes that he participates in preservation rather than forgery. The techniques he employs derive from the same natural laws that govern the original image's formation, their systematic application demonstrating that miraculous events operate through discoverable principles rather than arbitrary, supernatural intervention. Divine power works through creation's inherent order, not in opposition to natural law. Cardinal Alessandro Farnese brings troubling intelligence from sources within the College of Cardinals. Certain minds grow suspicious of activities that require such secrecy. He reports during a visit that finds the artist applying final chemical treatments to the completed shroud. Dominican inquisitors ask uncomfortable questions about nocturnal lights, observed in chambers supposedly sealed since antiquity. The time has come for concealment rather than continued investigation. The master seals his most dangerous discoveries in bronze containers that echo those found beneath Solomon's temple, their contents preserved through methods that ensure survival across centuries of political upheaval and religious persecution. The techniques he has perfected for light-based image formation could revolutionize artistic practice, but their implications for religious doctrine make open publication impossible. Your Holiness, he addresses the Pope during their final meeting in the hidden chambers. What we have accomplished demonstrates that sacred mystery operates through natural law rather than opposing it. But this revelation requires minds prepared for insights that transcend conventional boundaries between science and faith. Leo X examines the completed shroud, its image displaying photographic realism that no contemporary artistic technique can achieve. The figure bears the master's features transformed through optical processing into representation of divine sacrifice that speaks directly to viewers' spiritual sensibilities, while demonstrating systematic application of physical principles. History will judge whether we have served truth or perpetrated deception, the Pope replies, his words heavy with implications that extend far beyond immediate concerns. But if the original testimony crumbles to dust, this preservation ensures that future generations retain evidence of resurrection that transcends mere historical documentation. The shroud disappears into ecclesiastical archives, where it will remain hidden for centuries, its existence known only to papal custodians, sworn to secrecy that binds them beyond death itself. But Da Vinci retains copies of the techniques used in its creation, methods that he encodes within his final paintings, through symbolism that appears decorative while containing practical instructions for those possessing interpretive keys. Meanwhile, other discoveries from the Vatican archives reveal the deeper scope of preservation efforts. Beyond engineering texts and anatomical studies lie religious documents that trace mystery traditions through systematic transmission across cultures and centuries. Egyptian initiatory practices appear in Christian baptismal rituals. Persian astronomical observations influence Hebrew prophetic literature. Greek philosophical methods shape early church theological development. Master, Melzi observes, as they prepare to leave Rome for the safety of French patronage. These revelations suggest that all religions draw from common sources of ancient wisdom. Does this not threaten Christianity's claims to unique revelation? The artist seals the last of his dangerous manuscripts in traveling cases, designed to survive whatever persecution may follow. Perhaps the greatest truth lies in recognizing divine insight, speaking through all genuine seekers, regardless of cultural boundaries or historical periods. If God desires human comprehension to grow, he would plant seeds of illumination wherever minds prove capable of nurturing them. The journey to France carries more than an aging master seeking comfortable retirement. He bears northward the accumulated mysteries of three traditions: engineering science, Renaissance learning, and Christian esoteric doctrine, their synthesis creating potential for revolutionary advancement in human capability. Yet the political climate requires concealment rather than open teaching, preservation rather than immediate application. At Amboise, in chambers provided by King Francis I, he continues work that began beneath Solomon's temple 4 centuries past. The techniques perfected in Vatican darkness find expression in paintings that encode multiple levels of meaning, their surface beauty concealing systematic instructions for future minds prepared to unlock their secrets. Each brushstroke serves both aesthetic and educational purposes, creating art that teaches while it inspires. But time grows short for such extensive projects. Paralysis gradually claims his right hand, forcing reliance upon assistants whose comprehension of his deeper purposes remains necessarily limited. The preservation of accumulated learning becomes urgent priority as physical decline threatens to carry irreplaceable insights into grave silence. The brotherhood that began with 9 nights beneath Jerusalem's stones now faces its greatest challenge, ensuring that centuries of accumulated wisdom survives the death of its most accomplished guardian. Networks spanning Europe prepare to receive manuscripts whose contents could revolutionize human capability if they reach minds prepared for systematic application. Yet political and religious pressures require that such information remain hidden until circumstances permit safer revelation. In Clos-Lucé's upper chamber, watching French countryside through windows that frame his final earthly view, the master contemplates legacy that extends beyond individual achievement toward eternal preservation of humanity's accumulated learning. The secrets he guards represent more than personal discovery. They embody collective wisdom gathered across millennia through courage, sacrifice, and systematic investigation that treats mystery as invitation to deeper insight rather than barrier to human comprehension. The circle that began beneath Solomon's temple approaches completion, yet never truly ends. Each generation must preserve and transmit truths that previous minds discovered through suffering and systematic effort, ensuring that human learning continues growing toward illumination that transcends individual limitations while serving collective advancement. In this eternal cycle of preservation and revelation, every genuine seeker becomes guardian of insights that belong not to individuals, but to humanity's continuing journey toward truth itself. May rain patters against diamond-paned windows as François Melzi kneels beside his master's deathbed, watching candlelight flicker across features that have shaped humanity's vision of divine perfection. The year is 1519, and in Château du Clos, Lucé's upper chamber, history's greatest synthesizer of ancient wisdom prepares for his final journey. Yet death brings not endings, but transformation. The secrets guarded across 4 centuries must now pass to hands capable of protecting them through whatever darkness lies ahead. The bronze tubes, Da Vinci whispers, his voice barely audible above rain drumming on stone walls. Sealed beneath the eastern floor, you know which ones must never see daylight, which must wait for minds prepared to receive their revelations. His paralyzed right hand trembles as he gestures toward shadows that conceal more than architectural features. Melzi follows his master's gaze to floor stones that appear identical to their neighbors, yet hide chambers carved from bedrock, according to specifications that echo Jerusalem's deepest foundations. Beneath those ancient techniques lie manuscripts that trace humanity's intellectual heritage through bloodlines and brotherhood bonds spanning millennia, documents that could revolutionize civilization if they reach prepared consciousness, or destroy it if they fall into hostile possession. But master, Melzi protests, tears streaming down cheeks that have witnessed miracles of creation beyond contemporary imagination. How will I know when such minds appear? How can I judge worthiness to receive what you have guarded through decades of careful concealment? A smile crosses the dying man's lips, the same enigmatic expression that has puzzled viewers of his greatest portrait. The worthy will come seeking what they already sense exists. They will speak languages written in geometry and proportion, in natural philosophy and methodical investigation. Most importantly, they will grasp that true illumination serves humanity rather than individual ambition. King Francis I arrives as dawn breaks grey and cold across Loire Valley landscapes, his boots echoing through corridors that have hosted conversations reshaping European intellectual development. The French monarch has provided sanctuary for the master's final years, yet even royal protection cannot extend mortal existence beyond its appointed limits. What it can do is ensure that accumulated wisdom finds channels for continued safeguarding. Majesty, Da Vinci addresses his patron with effort that costs him precious strength. The manuscripts in the oak chest bear your seal. But remember, some truths require centuries to ripen before safe revelation becomes possible. Let your descendants judge timing more than immediate political advantage. Francis nods gravely, recognizing that he holds responsibility extending far beyond conventional royal duties. The documents he will inherit contain architectural innovations that could transform French military capabilities, hydraulic systems that could revolutionize agriculture, and most dangerously, religious insights that could shatter ecclesiastical authority throughout Europe. Such power demands wisdom that transcends immediate circumstances. As life ebbs from the master's body, networks spanning continents prepare to receive fragments of what single consciousness can no longer contain. In Scottish Highlands, William Sinclair adds new chambers to Rosslyn Chapel, their proportions following specifications that arrived through channels bypassing conventional correspondence. Each carved symbol encodes mathematical constants that will guide future builders towards structural innovations surpassing contemporary capability. The chapel's famous apprentice pillar rises according to spiral geometries that demonstrate advanced comprehension of forces governing architectural stability. Visitors marvel at decorative complexity that appears purely aesthetic, not recognizing careful incorporation of engineering principles that could support construction projects beyond medieval imagination. The pillar becomes textbook written in stone, its lessons awaiting minds capable of translating symbolic language into practical application. In Portuguese ports, navigators prepare expeditions using charts whose accuracy suggests impossible geographical precision. Vasco da Gama's successors carry instruments crafted according to specifications that enable stellar positioning with unprecedented exactitude, their measurements revealing coastlines before official exploration reaches them. The Order of Christ's maritime supremacy rests upon foundations laid centuries earlier beneath Jerusalem's stones. Florentine banking houses develop financial innovations that echo techniques first perfected in commandery counting rooms. The Medici banks establish correspondent relationships spanning known world, their transaction methods incorporating mathematical principles that optimize currency exchange while minimizing political risks. Compound interest calculations achieve precision that suggests comprehensive grasp of economic forces governing international trade. Yet the master's greatest legacy lies not in practical applications, but in methodical approaches to investigation that treat natural philosophy and artistic creation as unified endeavor. His notebooks demonstrate methods for observation, hypothesis formation, and experimental verification that will not be officially discovered for generations. Each drawing teaches technique, each mechanical design reveals force relationships, each anatomical study maps pathways connecting physical structure with functional capability. Francesco Melzi becomes the first guardian of this intellectual treasure, cataloging thousands of pages that contain enough innovation to supply centuries of technological development. But he recognizes that safeguarding requires more than careful storage. It demands selective distribution to minds capable of advancing human comprehension without triggering destructive persecution from authorities threatened by methodical investigation. Selected manuscripts travel northward to German states, where certain printers possess both technical capability and political protection needed for careful reproduction. Johannes Gutenberg's successors developed typography that can reproduce technical drawings with precision, their methods enabling careful distribution of engineering insights while maintaining appearance of conventional academic texts. Meanwhile, other documents journey southward toward Italian universities, where humanist scholars hunger for classical texts that expand their comprehension of ancient achievement. Recovered works attributed to Hero of Alexandria, Archimedes, and other Greek investigators find eager reception among academics prepared to treat methodical investigation as legitimate scholarly pursuit rather than dangerous heresy. The Vatican's hidden archives receive their own carefully selected editions, Pope Leo VI's successors grasped that the Church must adapt to intellectual currents that cannot be suppressed through conventional authority. Better to guide such developments from within than oppose them through persecution that historically proves counterproductive. Selected manuscripts enter papal collections, where they can influence church positions on natural philosophy without triggering immediate doctrinal controversy. In France, the chateaux of the Loire Valley become repositories for architectural innovations that transform construction techniques throughout Europe. Francis I's building projects incorporate structural systems that demonstrate advanced comprehension of load distribution, environmental adaptation, and aesthetic harmony. Each palace becomes demonstration of principles that guests can observe and potentially replicate in their own territories. But perhaps the most crucial legacy lies in educational methods that prepare future minds for methodical investigation, transcending cultural boundaries that limit lesser intelligence. Selected students receive instruction that combines artistic training with mathematical rigor, anatomical study with mechanical innovation, natural philosophy with practical experimentation. These pupils carry forward approaches to investigation that treat mystery as invitation rather than barrier to human comprehension. The Protestant Reformation creates unexpected opportunities for broader distribution of preserved wisdom. Religious upheaval loosens ecclesiastical control over intellectual development, allowing ideas to circulate through networks that previously faced constant suppression. Reformed churches, lacking established traditions that might conflict with methodical investigation, prove more receptive to natural philosophy that demonstrates divine order through discoverable laws. In England, young minds influenced by continental humanism begin developing experimental approaches that will culminate in revolutionary transformation of human comprehension. The Royal Society emerges from informal gatherings of investigators whose methods echo techniques preserved in Da Vinci's notebooks, their careful observation and hypothesis, testing, advancing natural philosophy through collective effort that transcends individual limitation. Scottish universities become centres for advanced mathematical instruction that incorporates principles derived from ancient sources. Students learn geometric relationships that enable architectural innovations, optical theories that improve astronomical observation, and mechanical analyses that optimize engineering applications. Each graduating class carries forward insights that enrich human capability while maintaining appearance of conventional academic instruction. The emergence of Rosicrucian brotherhoods in early 17th century represents organized coordination of safeguarding networks that previously operated through informal connections. These societies develop rituals and symbols that encode ancient wisdom within ceremonial frameworks, their initiatory degrees revealing increasingly sophisticated learning to members demonstrating appropriate preparation and commitment. Rosicrucian manifestos circulated throughout Europe describe methodical approaches to natural philosophy that echo methods preserved since antiquity. Their emphasis on combining spiritual development with practical investigation reflects synthesis achieved by the master 3 centuries earlier. Their promises of revolutionary advancement through careful study, attracting minds capable of advancing human comprehension beyond conventional limitations. Masonic lodges develop from stonemason guilds that trace their origins to medieval cathedral builders. Yet their symbolic systems incorporate insights that extend far beyond conventional construction techniques. The square and compass represent more than practical tools. They symbolize mathematical relationships that govern harmonious proportion throughout creation, their measurement capabilities enabling methodical investigation of natural law. Lodge rituals guard geometric principles through ceremonial enactment, their symbolic dramas teaching mathematical constants through memorable performance rather than abstract instruction. Each degree reveals increasingly sophisticated learning to initiates demonstrating readiness for advanced responsibility, their progression following educational sequences that echo ancient mystery school curricula. The founding of institutions like the Royal Observatory at Greenwich demonstrates how accumulated wisdom influences practical applications that benefit entire civilizations. Astronomical observations achieve unprecedented precision through instruments crafted according to specifications guarded across centuries, their measurements enabling navigational improvements that revolutionize maritime commerce and exploration. Colonial expansion carries preserved principles toward global application. European settlements incorporate urban planning that demonstrates advanced comprehension of hydraulic engineering, agricultural optimization, and defensive architecture. Each successful colony becomes proof that methodical investigation produces practical advantages over conventional approaches based upon tradition rather than experimental verification. Scientific revolution emerges not as sudden breakthrough, but as natural culmination of safeguarding efforts spanning centuries. Copernicus, Galileo, Newton, and other renowned investigators benefit from accumulated learning that enables their apparently revolutionary discoveries. Each breakthrough represents recovery of ancient insights rather than entirely original innovation. The Enlightenment's emphasis on reason over authority reflects intellectual liberation that begins with monks guarding classical texts through medieval darkness, continues through Renaissance humanists recovering ancient wisdom, and culminates in revolutionary transformation that reshapes human comprehension of natural law. Each generation builds upon foundations laid by predecessors committed to protecting truth through whatever persecution might arise. Modern universities trace their educational methods back to medieval schools, where certain teachers possessed access to texts that enabled methodical instruction in natural philosophy. The trivium and quadrivium that structure classical education incorporate learning sequences designed to prepare minds for advanced investigation of natural law, their pedagogical methods optimizing intellectual development through careful progression. Today, in laboratories and observatories throughout the world, investigators employ methods that echo approaches guarded across centuries of careful transmission, careful observation, hypothesis formation, experimental verification, and mathematical analysis combine to advance human comprehension through collective effort that transcends individual limitation and cultural boundaries. The circle that began with 9 nights beneath Solomon's temple continues expanding through minds that recognize investigation as sacred duty rather than merely intellectual curiosity. Each genuine discovery honors predecessors who protected wisdom through persecution. Each breakthrough serves future generations that will advance comprehension beyond present limitations. In quiet libraries where ancient texts rest alongside modern publications, in laboratories where methodical investigation reveals natural law through careful experimentation, in classrooms where dedicated teachers prepare future minds for responsible advancement of human capability, the legacy endures, transformed yet essentially unchanged, connecting past wisdom with future illumination through bonds stronger than empires, more enduring than kingdoms. The master's final words echo across centuries. Truth belongs not to individuals, but to humanity's continuing journey toward illumination. In this eternal progression, every genuine seeker becomes guardian of insights that serve collective advancement. Every methodical investigation honors those who protected wisdom through darkness. Every breakthrough illuminates pathways leading toward comprehension that transcends mortal limitation while serving immortal aspiration.